For decades, the number one meant being alone, a single isolated digit. But what if I told you that 4 ones in a row became a symbol of global shopping unity? This isn't a conspiracy, it's the story of November 11th. In 2009, what started as a simple anti-Valentine's Day joke among Chinese college students was transformed into something massive. It wasn't a government mandate or an ancient tradition. It was the bold vision of Alibaba's Jack Ma and Daniel Zhang. They saw an opportunity and ignited a spark that turned a day for the lonely into the planet's biggest commercial event. This invented holiday, Singles Day, now generates revenue peaks that make Black Friday look small, once surpassing $84 billion in just 24 hours. It truly was the day that changed everything. If you found this interesting, don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories like this. What if I told you the world's biggest shopping day isn't Black Friday or Cyber Monday? It's a day that was invented just over a decade ago. Let's talk about November 11th, or Singles Day. What started as a Chinese anti-Valentine's Day celebration, defined by 4 lonely ones, was strategically transformed by Alibaba in 2009. That first year, they made a respectable $7 million in 24 hours. But fast forward 10 years to 2019, and that same event raked in an unbelievable $38 billion in a single day. That's more than Black Friday and Cyber Monday combined. The lesson here is powerful. Major commercial events don't have to be traditional, they can be created. This shows how pairing an emotional trigger with digital ease can create an economic tidal wave. It makes you wonder what other untapped dates are out there, waiting to be turned into the next big thing. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more insights. The question that lingers is your company, your market, prepared for the day that is largely ignored, yet moves the greatest share of money in the world? The date that now drives the largest single-day revenue in global history is ironically one that was traditionally celebrated for isolation. November 11th, Singles Day. Before 2009, it was merely an obscure Chinese university holiday, 4 vertical ones, 11/11, representing loneliness, a bittersweet pause in the calendar. It was a day for treating yourself, perhaps, but not for mass commerce. Yet, in the pressurized headquarters of Alibaba in Hangzhou, the future of global retail was being quietly redrafted. Jack Ma's vision was ambitious, but the execution fell largely to Daniel Zhang, then the chief operating officer of Taobao. Zhang recognized the psychological leverage embedded in the date. The idea was simple, but profoundly revolutionary. If you took a day defined by self-pity or isolation and repurposed it as a collective celebration of self-reward driven by irresistible discounts, you could manufacture demand out of thin air. They didn't aim to compete with existing shopping holidays like Black Friday in the US, which was tethered to the cultural tradition of Thanksgiving. They aimed to create a new tradition entirely. The goal was to train the consumer base, which was rapidly adopting e-commerce through Taobao and Tmall, to wait for this specific day to fulfill their desire. November 11th, 2009. The first official mass sales campaign for the Double 11 festival was launched. Skepticism was high, even within the company. Could they really ignite a national shopping frenzy on a day that previously meant nothing? The market held its breath. Then, the internet began to boil. What started as an experiment quickly became a deluge. In those chaotic 24 hours, the conservative internal targets were obliterated. The inaugural Singles Day generated 52 million yuan in sales, equivalent to approximately $7.8 million at the time. To put this into context, while still modest compared to US holiday retail, this nascent event, conceived from scratch, demonstrated a power curve unseen elsewhere. Consider that in the US in 2009, the established Black Friday weekend, online and offline, was generating hundreds of millions, built on decades of tradition. The Chinese spark required zero prior history, only digital orchestration. What Ma's team understood was not just a successful day of discounts, but the discovery of a potent socio-commercial trigger. They had proven that consumer demand, when digitized, centralized, and given a sense of urgency, could be manufactured on a timeline of their own making. This single, unexpected success created a colossal ripple effect, teaching the retail world a critical lesson. that you do not need culture or history to drive mass consumption, you only need scarcity and a unified digital platform. This pivot away from reliance on established holidays was the seismic shift. But how did they manage to scale a single $7.8 million experiment into an event that, just over a decade later, would dwarf the entire annual e-commerce volume of countries combined? To understand that, we must look at the infrastructure they built to support a nation that was suddenly united in the pursuit of the discounted package. This infrastructure was not born in a vacuum. It was a direct reflection of a China brimming with contained potential and profound contradictions. Around 2009, the country was at the peak of its economic rise, yet this wealth was not uniformly distributed. The urban middle class was growing exponentially, a population larger than many European countries combined. But traditional brick-and-mortar retail, dominated by expensive shopping centers and imported brands, still lacked the access or variety to please the vast majority. There was a suppressed hunger for consumption, quality, and crucially, belonging, simmering just beneath the surface of society. This is where the paradox of November 11th enters the frame. The date of the 4/1s, traditionally a niche holiday celebrating solitude, was about to be transformed into the greatest commercial union event on the planet, catalyzed by that pent-up demand. Leading this transformation was Daniel Zhang, an executive with a discreet profile, known for his surgical strategic vision and relentless focus on numbers, a stark contrast to Jack Ma's theatrical public charisma. Zhang was then COO of Taobao and realized they needed a significant anchor event to propel Tmall, Alibaba's emerging B2C platform focused on major brands, into the consciousness of the Q4 consumer. He noted that Americans had Black Friday later in the month, but China needed a proactive trigger. They needed to educate hundreds of millions of people to trust high-volume online purchasing, dissolving years of ingrained skepticism. Zhang and his team scrutinized the calendar. 11/11 Singles Day was perfect. It was not a major public holiday. It carried no heavy religious or political baggage. It was a socially accepted blank slate, ready to be repainted by the vibrant colors of consumerism. Their goal for the first iteration was simple: offer discounts so aggressively compelling that customers could not afford to ignore them. The first edition, in 2009, was less an avalanche and more an audacious experiment. Yet the results were electrifying: 52 million yuan in sales, roughly $7 million. To put that figure in context, American Cyber Monday, only 4 years older, was generating only a few $100 million across a much more mature e-commerce landscape. China's 11.11 in its debut year already demonstrated a growth potential that defied Western commercial rules. The profound lesson China was teaching the global corporate world was this: do not wait for established historical shopping dates like Christmas or Thanksgiving. If you strategically build the demand and provide the infrastructure, the date will come to define itself. Crucially, e-commerce in this burgeoning economy was not just a convenience, it was a social equalizer. 11/11 filled the accessibility void. It gave the rapidly expanding middle class access to quality goods previously seen only in elite coastal cities. Suddenly, the young professional in a second-tier city could secure the same discounted high-quality product as someone in Shanghai. It was no longer just about buying, it was about participating, about being actively included in the dominant narrative of Chinese prosperity. It was the collective release of latent desire. But this consumption wave required a colossal price paid in logistics. Success wasn't secured merely by compelling promotions. It was guaranteed by the ruthless ability to move the package from the factory floor to the end consumer's doorstep, often in a matter of days. While the world's financial media fixated on the cash flow, the true high-stakes game was being executed on the roads, through proprietary data centers, and within hastily erected distribution hubs. This was the ultimate stress test for the new China. If the logistics system failed, 11.11 would immediately become an indelible logistical embarrassment. Zhang's bet was that the meticulous infrastructure China had built primarily for its export economy could now be pivoted and inverted to serve the domestic market. They were about to discover whether the dragon had the digestive capacity to consume what it produced. What followed in 2010 and 2011 was not merely growth, it was an exponential explosion. And it was at this crucial moment that the Western world still focused on the deliberate pace of Black Friday, made the fatal error of not just ignoring November 11th, but profoundly underestimating the sheer velocity of the Chinese digital transformation. While the West slept or deliberately ignored the burgeoning purchasing power of the Chinese consumer, November 11th ceased to be a mere date. It became a meteorological phenomenon of consumption. That first year, 2009, with its modest $7 million in sales, was just the whisper before the tsunami. In less than 5 years, 11.11 sales figures already surpassed the combined sales of Black Friday and Cyber Monday in the United States. This wasn't merely selling, it was a total redefinition of the retail calendar. By 2017, Alibaba smashed the $25 billion barrier in a single day, a figure that seemed fantastical. By 2021, the combined sales across major platforms during the event's period neared $84 billion, a scale that dwarfs the GDP of many smaller nations. The speed of this escalation is the crucial, terrifying element. It demonstrates not just high demand, but the successful manufacturing of tradition and urgency. What global competitors failed to grasp was that 11.11 was not primarily about simple discounts. It was about entertainment, spectacle, and gamification. Daniel Zhang, the architect of the date, transformed the act of shopping into a televised national event, a grand spectacle beginning weeks earlier with pre-sales and culminating in extravagant galas featuring international celebrities and high-tech countdowns. It was a digital carnival, ensuring that 11.11 was emotionally ingrained in the populace. This success carried immense physical weight. Behind the glowing screens, Chinese society mobilized. Millions of workers, exhausted but essential, formed the logistical spine of the operation. The Day of the Singles, which celebrated isolation, now ironically unified the entire nation in a logistical and emotional frenzy, an annual consumption catharsis that required unprecedented infrastructure. Fleets of delivery vehicles, sprawling automated warehouses, and algorithms that processed orders with military precision. The Chinese lesson is the ultimate commercial plot twist. Do not wait for demand, create it. Do not wait for a globally recognized holiday, invent your own. 11.11 proved that e-commerce possesses the power to forge traditions overnight, transforming an obscure university holiday into the planet's largest consumption explosion. It is both a blueprint and a stark warning. Western companies continue to struggle to replicate this success, often ignoring the profound digital infrastructure and cultural nuances that made it possible. We look at 11.11 as a Chinese thing, but in reality, it is the vanguard of the future of global retail. It forces a fundamental question upon us. If the relentless model of manufactured consumption is the future, what does that mean for the rest of the year? And how will Western nations react when China begins exporting not just its goods, but its meticulously planned consumption holidays to the world? But what truly defines the significance of Singles' Day is not just the astronomical figures, nor the records broken year after year. In 2020, for instance, the event generated a staggering $74.1 billion in sales, eclipsing the combined revenue of US Black Friday and Cyber Monday. What remains is the cold, calculated lesson on digital value creation. This day, conceived in a university dorm as an ironic celebration of isolation, was transformed by Daniel Zhang and Jack Ma into the largest act of collective consumption the planet has ever witnessed. 11.11 proves that e-commerce does not wait for historical holidays or religious dates. It invents them, exploiting emotional niches and converting them into massive economic engines. This is the echo of 11 that resonates globally. While many Western companies fix their calendars strictly between Thanksgiving and Christmas, they miss the annual race started back in 2009. The true Chinese lesson, etched into the heart of Asia, is a stark reminder. The next great wave of consumption will not be announced by a traditional bell, but by a digital click. Ignoring November 11th means ignoring your audience's capacity to adopt purely digital commercial dates. It means ultimately ignoring the future of retail. This was just one of the days that shaped our world. Tomorrow we will publish another landmark historical event. To make sure you don't miss it, subscribe now to The Day That Changed Everything and turn on notifications. What other day would you like to see featured here? Comment below.